Okay guys, it is time to come clean and make a major confession that I hope is really going to help anyone in any stage of loving themselves, loving their body, or being in, a body that they really feel comfortable with. Whether you're like a student of mine and you're making like tons of really good progress towards your best body and you want to go to like the next level, or whether you've like me, you've lost weight before and gained it, or whether you're just starting on your journey. I think that this is such an important thing to understand about this journey, because I actually had no idea. Okay, when I set out on my journey, I had absolutely no idea all of the stuff that I was gonna learn and all the stuff that was gonna happen. And my setbacks, a lot of like my setbacks, I've had to like figure a way through them, like getting into a body that I really felt at home in and that I felt comfortable in. I had to like go through them and figure them out so that I could help other people. So the current challenge that I am facing, I have just come to like an epiphany of how perfect this is for my own development into my own best body and my own kind of self-actualization, to be not just like being in the like a fly body, but actually being the person that I feel I genuinely am, like the best version of myself. I think this is going to make a major impact on how good I feel throughout my whole life. But this starts with feeling bad. And I think that's a really important thing to point out too, and to like really come clean about, is all of the bad feelings that I have had gaining a whole bunch of weight. I think I should start at the start. Okay, for anybody who doesn't know my story, or maybe you should hear it again so that this all makes sense. I was a very healthy child. I was fed well. I was active. I was healthy, like physically in every way, and yet I carried extra weight pretty much my whole life. And I tend to carry weight well, whatever that means. So it wasn't really that I had a problem with how I looked ever. It was that I was incredibly uncomfortable. I was incredibly uncomfortable in my body every time I moved. And no matter what I did, I could never lose it. Now, what I came to understand about carrying extra weight on your body is it is inextricably linked with trauma. And for me, part of my story, part of what makes me really strong and capable to teach these things, is that I was incredibly traumatized as a child. I had a mentally, emotionally, spiritually very damaging household. Parents with mental health issues, mental illness in, well, kind of both cases. One of my parents has done a lot of work for themselves to get themselves, in a healthy place, and we have a great relationship. My other parent, I have to have really strict boundaries with. So anyways, how that affected me is that I had a very weird way of interacting with the world, and I was coming from a place of trauma, and that showed on my body. So what I learn time and time again as, I go through this journey with my body, with myself, this lifelong journey, and I teach other people, is this is totally linked. If you look at, I'm a researcher. That's part of my story that I will talk about. But if you look at the research, it is not straightforward, because when we were looking at how like biologically we lose weight, like how fat is eaten, it isn't straightforward. That this is definitely linked to mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being and balance and harmony between those things. But if you look further in the research and see like how people actually lose weight, like what they're aligned with, like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it's always necessarily a major change on all of those levels. So for me, leaving my household, leaving my country, I went and moved to Europe. I changed my environment completely. I didn't really see much of a difference. But when I had gone on diets or exercised a bunch more or anything like this, nothing ever made a difference. Nothing like physical like that made a difference for me. But when I moved to Asia, I went on a kind of like self-pilgrimage of some sort and studied Eastern Asian philosophies and medicines and nutrition, etc. I lost a bunch of weight without even thinking about it. I didn't change anything. In fact, if anything, I was eating way more and working out less. I started getting into yoga instead of more, hardcore kind of cardio and strength training that I was doing before. And at that time, yoga was like pretty gentle. It was more classical style yoga than the hot yoga and the Ashtanga and stuff that we have today. I mean, Ashtanga is classical, but anyways. But yeah, I lost weight, like a bit of weight, like quite a bit of weight, without even making any changes, just because I gained a bit of like mental, emotional, and spiritual independence. And then I went into school. I went into university. So I was studying with Western masters at this point. And I had a whole bunch of anxiety, a lot of my mental, emotional, and spiritual kind of issues, energetic issues, like anxiety came up that I'd been dealing with like Eastern principles. I now couldn't really use my Eastern principles in this like hyper Western kind of civilization community that I was in as an academic, and I was studying to be a serious academic. I had to learn different ways to deal with this, and what happens was I kind of like cured it, because I went from an Eastern standpoint, I went in this like emotional, spiritual, energetic kind of curative way of curing and going through my trauma and getting out the other side. I had lost a bit of weight, and then when I went into a Western community and culture, I learned kind of the mental and physical ways of curing the trauma in an Eastern way, through like mental and physical means, right? So what happened was I shrank right down to my ideal body composition without really doing a lot. I mean, I was living active, I was eating healthily, but I had always been living actively and eating healthily. So there wasn't any big change. I didn't even notice it was happening. I wasn't trying to do it. It just happened. Why? Because at that point, I had really gained the independence from that traumatizing situation, from those coping mechanisms that came from that trauma, all of the ways that I was relating that to myself, to the world, that were unhealthy. There's all this disharmony within me, which was why I was carrying the weight. And that's why I was carrying the weight from, a very young age in my situation, in my personal kind of story. For a lot of my students, they'll tell me, something happened in their life and then they gained weight. And it was like that at that point, there was like some kind of trauma. And then what resulted was they started walking around in a body that was less vulnerable, that seemed less vulnerable. They're carrying around the weight of this trauma. So when I was leaving university, I was supposed to go on to be a serious academic, and I chose to take a different path. I chose to be a different kind of person. I wanted to be this spiritual master kind of person, this creative, this artist, as well as, an academic, as a logistic kind of researcher who is involved in science, etc. I wanted both things, and academia at this time for me in my path, it just was not offering it. And I was in love with this man who was like this creative, and me leaving the path of having all of this kind of framework, this community that totally supported me, that I understood, that was stable, gave me stability, and allowed me this independence to be this independent thinker, feeler, have this independent energy and do my research and do my tasks and be this independent person in this community that was respected and safe. Losing that community by going a different route was also coupled with me, this man, this creative who I thought was going to be like there for me and support me. I'd known him for years, also went his own way, and I was just devastated. Like I was devastated. I mean, I slipped into like some form of depression. I mean, I was still moving forward, but I was kind of like blank. And what happened, you can guess, you know, I gained a bit of weight back. And again, no changes to my diet, no changes to my exercise routine, nothing like that. Just mental, emotional, and spiritual changes brought back some of this weight. And as I dealt with, you know, all of these changes and losing this person that I loved and not understanding why, and the world was a very confusing place, as I started to figure it out and start my own business, and, you know, I met somebody new, I started to, again, naturally, and at this point I had stopped working out completely, and I was eating French fries every day and, you know, just like not really taking care of my diet that well at all. I started losing a lot of this weight. I had gained back a lot of my independence. And then Douglas arrived. So, unbeknownst to me, he was suffering with a lot of the same traumas that I had been suffering from. And while we were just in like the romance period before we really had to start dealing with each other, I actually had started using my own therapies that I created for other people. You know, I started Uproots Wellness, and I started all these therapies for other people to lose weight the way that I did too. And I did a month-long challenge by using the actual therapies myself and with Douglas. And I lost all of the weight. I got back into kind of the same size I was in my ideal body composition. But the story doesn't end there. So as I started to experience this very similar trauma through being in a relationship with Douglas, through him kind of acting out his own coping mechanisms from, you know, quite a similar but very different situation to mine, what happened was, over years of enduring this, I was steadily gaining weight, and I pretty much gained back all of the weight to the point where I was going into university, to that level, when we had a major breakthrough. We had a major breakthrough because I actually got kind of inserted into situations with the people who had traumatized him, were then directly like putting this same kind of poor treatment on me directly, and it just kind of like exploded. It exploded in both of our awareness of what was actually happening. It exploded in me. You know, I was like constantly trying to use the tools that I had learned to keep myself safe and healthy and happy, and get, you know, not just into my best body, not just into my ideal body composition, but into my ideal self, which was totally aligned and is totally aligned with that best body. The only way that I could think of like solving this solution was to gain independence back, to gain my independence, to gain my mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical independence back, so that I could be healthy and I could be happy. Healthy. And listen, I'm not talking about healthy, eating well, and exercising. Again, like this whole time, I exercise harder now and eat better now than I ever have. But the situation where, you know, I was sort of reliving my own trauma with Douglas made me gain a bunch of weight, and brought me back to that stage where I was going into university, where I had quite a bit of independence, and I had lost quite a bit of weight to the last year that we've been together, and going through like brand new trauma, like adding to like my trauma experiences. I gained more weight than I have ever been before, than I ever have. So I am heavier now than I ever thought possible. Like, it was not within my brain that I could actually get this big. And if I'm doing a really good job explaining this and making it into a positive, like, I hope that you take some sort of inspiration from that, because it's still really hard. And I honestly really only started to understand it today, what was actually happening. And it is a really, really positive thing, but I want you guys to know that, like, I feel your pain. I try to come across with a really positive message all the time, because I want you guys to be able to come here and get that. And to be able to come to my school and get that, and be able to, like, see me and be inspired. But sometimes this can be really inspiring too, knowing that people are struggling through their growth, and that that's okay. Because today I realized that now I'm learning how to move through this trauma and to be the best version of myself in an interdependent way, which is so much higher than independent. And I've been struggling so hard, and we've been struggling so hard with all of these issues, you know, all of these challenges. It's not, like, again, it's not just about body, right? It is not just about weight. This is about everything. This is about my life. This is about me being in control of my life. This is about me being highly productive. This is about me being happy and healthy. Wellness is holistic, and your best body really is the emblem of that. That's why we all desire it. It's not vain at all. But I was reading a fellow scholar and realizing that the ways that I learn and the ways that I teach in the Ideal Body Composition Comprehensive, that is a very necessary stage to getting over trauma, to growing, to developing, to maturing in any way, shape, or form. Now, that is especially true if, you know, you didn't have parents who, you know, set you up on that right track, or if you had traumatizing situations that set you back, you know, into the mode where you were, like, dependent, which is, like, signs of that are, like, blaming other things, blaming, you know, genetics, blaming environment, etc., etc., etc. Gaining independence from that, realizing that you are a sovereign creator, that you can create your environment and work with your epigenetics, and like that you can actually dictate how you're going to live your life and how you're going to respond, and what you're going to create and what body you're going to live in. That's like a huge part and a huge step to getting super, super healthy or wealthy or whatever it is that you want. And that's what I've been teaching. But the next step is working interdependently. So working with the environment, working with the genetics, working with, you know, the people around you, working with, you know, I don't even know. I mean, I can't even teach on it yet. I just know that this is where I'm at. This is what the next stage is. And this is why the weight came back. It's not that, you know, my methods don't work, because I friggin' believe me, I have been there and back again, and there and back again, like doubting myself and doubting the Uppers Wellness methods that I've created so far because of this weight gain. But I also refused to use the methods because I intuitively understood that this was different. I intuitively understood that I needed a different approach. I intuitively understood that I needed to do something different, to actually be something different. And now I'm realizing exactly what it is, and that this weight is actually a blessing. Because now I am going through, and I have a plan, a 3-month plan. I am going through to grow through the next step. I'm going through this massive challenge of weighing more than I've ever weighed, of gaining more weight than I've ever gained, to get into maybe a better body than I've ever been in, because I am actually leveling up. I'm going to the next playing field. I am moving into an interdependent, happy, healthy life. And I'm going to be taking you guys with me through it all. I have like a 3-month kind of plan to get myself through it, and after that I am going to be teaching a masterclass that I have wanted to create. Excuse me. I've wanted to create for years. It is like the foundation and the actual pinnacle of everything that I teach on. It's a principle that I uncovered throughout my research in Western academia and like spiritual mastery in the East. It encompasses absolutely everything. It's called root love, and I have been very well, I thought I hadn't gotten the chance to really teach on it yet, but now I'm realizing that I don't think I truly even really understood it fully yet. So I think that it's been put off in a perfect way, because this is the next level of Uppers Wellness. This is the next level for my students. This is the next level for me. This is the next level for our global community. To rise into being the absolute best version of ourselves in community, in cohort with other people, in cooperation, in like this interdependent way, where it's not just me living my best life, but me living a part of our best life in our greatest health. This is truly the last stage. It has to be absolutely the last stage in actually not just like personal development, but especially for those who have been through traumas, which I think is pretty much my entire cohort of students, because otherwise why the hell would we be overweight and not liking it? I mean, some people, you can be overweight and healthy, and if you love your body, that's phenomenal. This has nothing to do with the way that my body looks. And for my students, this doesn't have, usually, I don't think anyways, have anything to do with the way that their body looks. It's the way that they feel. And if you feel out of place in your own body, then you're in the wrong kind of body. You're carrying around stuff that doesn't belong to you, and that's why it doesn't feel like home. So this like transcendence to interdependent living, I think that this is the absolute last stage, and this is beyond self-actualization and like the Maslow's like hierarchy of needs. This is like giving back. This is like going and growing into a place where you can be completely healthily involved in everything around you and actually like come back. You know, like I feel like the independence part, you know, you need to go away and gain your independence in order to like come back and rejoin and be part, and to actually have transcended that trauma to becoming the absolute best version of yourself. You know, I'm gonna be the absolute best version of myself in relationship with the whole world. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, welcome to the club. I hope that it does make sense by the end of this 3 months. So I really hope that you join me on this journey. Like and subscribe for more. I will try not to cry next time. See you guys.